Well, hello, dear family, and welcome once again to another great episode of Victory in Jesus. I'm so excited, I'm so delighted that once again you have allowed us, you have invited us to come into your home and share the good news of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. As you already know, I'm your host, Frank Tony. This is my lovely co-host, my wife of 31 years, Angela Tony. We're so excited again to be able to come with you and share with you this week of the great and mighty things that God is doing. You know, that's the thing about God. He never ceases to amaze us. He is constantly, he's always showing us something new, something different. God is always up to something. And I want to just leave that message with you right from the onset to let you know that God is up to something good in your life as well. So as we move forward into this broadcast, I am so happy. I am so excited and elated to have this guest with us today. We have tried for long and hard to get her, and finally the schedule has permitted that we would be able to have her to come and share her wisdom, her knowledge, her expertise with us on today. I'm speaking of none other than Miss Brenda Muse, the director now. I understand there's a recent promotion that has taken place in your life. You're serving as the director and coordinator for the curriculum of the Franklin County school system. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is my second year in that position.
Amen.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome to the show, Brenda
Thank
Muse.
you.
Thank you so much for coming. As we say often, we know that time is so valuable these days that it's hard to really fit everything that you have to do in a day's time. So the fact that you're here lets us know how you feel about us, and we want you to know that we feel the same about you. So once again, thank you
You're welcome.
for accepting the invitation and for being part of the broadcast on today.
Thank
Now, we just said a moment ago, we just touched on it. I'm going to say you're a lifelong educator. You've been in the education system for 22 years, I think.
22 years, yes.
22 years.
Yes.
Wow, you don't look much older than 22.
I agree. I agree with you. I tell myself that every day.
Amen.
You have to keep that youthful mentality, to work with students and staff. So that's what I try to portray.
That is a great mindset. Tell us a little bit about your track record. What got you to this director of curriculums now? How did you get to that? For what have you served in other capacities?
Well, I'm a career switcher. When I first graduated from college several years ago, I was in banking for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
After about 3 bank mergers, I decided that's enough. I needed a more stable career. So I got involved in education in 1995. I was an English teacher at the middle school for about 7 or 8 years. And in that time, I served in many leadership roles. I was a team leader, department chair. Then I became a special education coordinator at the middle school, and then I moved to the high school. Then I became assistant principal, and then principal of the middle school, and then my current position is director. So I've been a believer in education, and I know how it will work for you if you take full advantage of all the opportunities. So that's why I'm a lifelong learner. And I'm a full supporter of education for our young people. There are no excuses now why our young people cannot achieve. I came from humble beginnings, grew up here in Franklin County in the Suntag area. My parents were not educated, but they wanted to make sure that my sister and I, and even my brothers, if we wanted to take advantage of education, they were going to support us. So I know what can be done.
That's true.
And I know with God's right at the forefront, all things are possible. So I'm a firm believer.
We are living in times now where education is vital. At one point in time, there were a lot of farming families. There was a lot of industrial jobs that were available within this region. But as the times has changed, so has the opportunities for employment. And it is vital that our children realize the importance of these formative years from K through 12 and to make the best of that time that they have with educators and within the school system for a free education and to take full advantage of it. I think sometimes our students see it more as a task than an opportunity.
Exactly.
But education is vital. If you don't have an education in this time of technology and in this season of existence, you pretty much don't have a lot of options that are before you. So thank you, and to the many other educators of the Franklin County area that take the time to educate and re-educate yourself to be available for service for our from the social and the educational aspect of our region. So yeah, I think that that's something we are always pushing in our church family. That's something we're always telling our son, who's 14 years old, soon to be 15, that this is vital. This is serious. It's just not a social time for you to go and have fun with your friends. That's important.
Right.
But the most important aspect is for you to learn something.
Exactly.
Is to learn something. How has that process been for you over the last 22 years? How have you seen the student, how has the student changed?
Oh my goodness. I would say that the student has changed tremendously. And I would say the parents have changed over time. Some good and some not so good. I think as time goes on, I think many people lose the aspect of how important education is, and they don't tend to get involved like they should. But over years, I've seen the demands of education and with our standards continue to increase.
Right.
I've seen expectations on our teachers just continue to grow. More and more and more has been expected of our teachers to impart upon our students. Students have to be accountable now. They have to be accountable for their learning, and they have to demonstrate that they have mastered the standards of learning. I think years and years ago, there were ways around that, but now because of the state mandates, every student has to be accountable and demonstrate that. And I think, there's nothing wrong with accountability. We all have to be accountable. And I think with that accountability, it enables us to grow and to be more empowered over our learning. And I think when students graduate from high school, I think they're better prepared to enter college or enter a career in technical school or even just enter the workforce, because there are certain skills that all students have to possess. Now the high school graduate has to be able to problem solve. They have to be able to work with other people. You just cannot be in a bubble by yourself.
Right.
And so the middle school, high school, and even elementary schools, they prepare students how to problem solve, how to think for yourself, how to think critically, how to get along with others, and how to accept different viewpoints. And that's what a lot of the SOL mandates have, it's involved into that. The accountability part has grown to the level that it's enabled us to have more mandates. So that's a good thing. We all don't grow at the same level, but we all can grow at a level in which we can be successful. So.
That is true. I've heard a lot of a differentiated opinion concerning the SOLs. And by you being director of curricula, what are some positive aspects of SOL and even some negative aspects of that you've noticed that have developed through time with the SOLs?
Well, I always like to start with the positive.
Absolutely.
I just think with the standards of learning that have occurred over the past several years, here again, I think it does give every student a measure of achievement that they are expected to master when they graduate, and even on a yearly basis as they progress from one grade level to the next. There are basic standards that all students should know. Students should be proficient in reading and in math, and I think everyone needs to have that. Now, on the flip side, I would say one of the negative drawbacks of the standards of learning, all students are still expected to take the same assessment. All students learn differently, and we learn in different ways, and we learn in different paces. So to expect all students to take the same test, I think is still unreasonable. I think we need to have a choices for students to show or demonstrate their assessment or demonstrate their knowledge. So I think that's one negative drawback to the standards of learning. And I know the state in the past couple of years, with the science and social studies SOLs being eliminated for 3rd grade and 5th grade, they are taking small steps, and they are listening to educators more to try to include more choices and more options for students to demonstrate mastery. So I think that's a plus.
Okay, well, good. I have to admit that I don't know a lot about the SOLs, but I do follow our students that are within our congregation, and I do like listening and staying abreast of things concerning public and private education. One of the things that I saw on television this morning was that 675,000 children within the USA refuse to take an exam.
Yes. Now, I know every year more and more parents are opting their students out of SOLs, but I think it's at a handicap to that child. Here again, every child needs to have some measure to demonstrate that they know the content.
Right.
For a parent to say, I'm going to exclude my child from taking this test, I think they're hurting the child. Because when that same child has to go to college, or if they go to a career and technical school, they're going to take some interest test to get in. And so the standards of learning test is just one avenue to help prepare that student.
Right.
Because if you go to college, there's no way you can opt out of an ACT test or SAT. I mean, you cannot do that.
No.
If you go to a career and technical school, you're going to have to take some type of admittance test before you get in. So the standards of learning is state mandated, and here again, all students won't be successful on it. We want 100%, but we know they're not. But the practice and the learning that comes from that, I think, is valuable for all students.
I agree. There has to be some form of mile markers to determine whether the information that is being taught is actually being comprehended and applied. I know that sometimes children suffer from test anxiety because they know this test that it has a great bearing on what it is on their next move.
Right.
What are some of the things that a parent can do to help a child through test anxiety for a major test that they are going to have, like an SOL?
Well, one of the things that I always tell parents is this is a year-long process.
Right.
And it's a K through 12 process. When you know your child suffers from test anxiety, a lot of students do. Number one, have a meeting with your child's teachers. Sit down and have a conversation with them. You know, these are the things that you have noticed. And together, you working with the teachers, you can come up with a plan to help ease some of those fears when test anxiety. And one of the things that occurs throughout the year, there are different assessments that occur in the classroom. We call them benchmarks, we call them end of the course tests, but all of these different types of tests help to prepare a student for the big tests at the end of the year or at the end of the semester. But many teachers, they will work with the student if a student needs breaks during an assessment, if they need to have something to drink. Some students might need to have a little gadget there to hold on to. All of these are little strategies that will help to ease and calm a student down before they take a test. Because it is. I mean, it's huge, and it causes a lot of anxiety and tension for our students, but we don't want our students to be nervous and apprehensive about taking a test. We want them to use the skills that's been imparted in them throughout the year, relax, take deep breaths, and just do their best and work to their potential.
Do you study for an SOL?
No. I think if a student has applied himself or herself throughout the entire year, then they're prepared for the SOL test.
So it's not a specific study, it is a learning process.
Yes.
It is a process to learning. And I think that's important for parents to know, because you can't cram for that test.
No, you cannot.
You have to prepare for that test. And in that sense, I do see SOLs as a positive, because once they get into higher learning, higher education, there are some tests that you're just going to have to prepare yourself for. You won't be able to spend overnight cramming for it. It is the process. So if you learn the process early, you can master, or at least be able to be comfortable with the process of learning. So in that aspect, I can see the positive of the SOLs, of how it not only prepare the child, but it also prepares the parent as well, because this is a partnership.
It is.
We're not just sending off our children to schools to be babysat. We're sending them off to learn something, and we're all are a team in that. Would you agree?
I certainly agree, and I was just enjoying the conversation that you two were having. And I was thinking about the SOLs and the final exams and the different benchmarks, as you've shared already. And I was thinking about, when it's all said and done, after the 12 years of high school, then you make your way towards further education, college levels. How do you sense, one way or another, how the SOLs have impacted the graduation rates, the national average, or even in our region? Has there been any kind of attribution to those?
Well, I would say with the graduation rate at Franklin County High School, over the past 3 to 5 years, we've seen a steady increase in our graduation rates. Last year it was 87% for our high school. I think the year before that we had about 84, and then the year prior to that was about 82. So we've seen a steady increase. Now nationwide, I think the overall graduation rate is 81%. still we are not as close to countries like China. You know, they have a much higher percentage. They have like a 95% graduation rate, but I think their whole philosophy regarding education is completely different from the United States. But we have seen many increases, and it's a result of our teachers and administrators and just working with our students and trying to help them be successful. And I think more and more parents and students are seeing the need and the value of graduating from high school.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a high school diploma, you are, you know, you're just missing out on so many opportunities, and your opportunities will be limited, very limited,
Yes, it will.
of what you can do in life. And so every young person needs that. And, you know, I'm pleased to say at the high school there are many opportunities for students who may want to go an alternate route. We have an adult ed program that supports students who may decide they, you know, want to drop out of high school. We have an adult ed program that will pick up, you know, from where the high school leaves off. And within a few months, a student can still obtain their diploma. And here again, this is a resource many people don't take advantage of. Some students may have just one semester left of high school, and for whatever reason or another, they decide they want to leave. Well, they need to go directly to that adult ed and continue their education. And with online, with technology, a lot of this can be achieved in the comfort of your own home.
Same degree as it would if you stayed in the high school system.
Yes, because when an employer, if an employer calls the high school and says that Mr. Smith, was he a student at your high school? Did he graduate from Franklin County High School? We could say, Mr. Smith has a diploma. You know, we don't have to discern if it was an adult ed diploma or a graduate from Franklin County High School. You know, so
that's I think that's something that
That's
more people need to know about.
Mhm. Yes.
'Cause I don't think that that's common knowledge within the family, within the community.
Right.
So that's very. I think that's a great opportunity, a great program to offer. So there's, like as you said earlier, there's really no excuse for not having an education. You touched on it earlier, and I just want to kind of hear a little bit more about it as far as the I was talking the lifelong education. You know, we're unfortunately in the times that we're in today, education, higher education has really gotten to be quite expensive. In fact, you know, we've shared amongst ourselves how, you know, when you do get that education, you have to really be serious-minded, seriously focused about it, because you incur such a debt that when you get out, you know, you have to have some kind of means, some kind of gainful employment that's going to help you satisfy that debt. Because now, I'm sorry to say, we're seeing a lot of young folk go to school and build up the debt, get the certificate, the diploma, but then they can't find employment.
That's true.
When they get out. So for that person, I don't know that we can say this is the answer, but for that person who is, you know, dealing with that situation, would you say, like, local colleges, community colleges, higher ed places where it's not as expensive, would those be, you know, options that you would suggest?
I think that's an option for some students, but here again, now at our high school, students, if they take the correct course of classes, they can graduate from Franklin County High School with a 2-year degree. With a 2-year degree, debt-free.
Wow.
But here again, that's a conversation that has to occur with the guidance counselors. Students have to make sure they're enrolled in the right courses. But here again, I don't think people are taking advantage of those courses like they should. And then even when students do leave the high school, you know, if they choose to go to community college, we have wonderful local community college, Patrick Henry, Virginia Western. I think they are wonderful avenues for some students. But those who can't afford or who do have the resources to go to a four-year institution, you know, I'm an advocate of that as well. Now, many times, I just had a conversation with a financial aid advisor just last week. We still have many people who do not take advantage of the financial resources that are right at their fingertips. For example, at the high school, there is a booklet that's already prepared for this school year that has scholarships that are available in this county through many organizations and agencies. I would say it's at least 100. Many people, and even some at my church, are not even aware of that it exists. Now, with these scholarships, it does take time for you to apply. but unless you apply, you don't know what financial aid you can get.
Right.
Many colleges, they are seeking students and are willing to give thousands of dollars to have a child come to their school. But here again, it's all about networking. It's all about knowing what's out there and what's available. And I just think we should not let the cost of education stop anyone from attending college.
I totally agree.
And it's something like, it's like a faith walk. I can remember when I graduated from college, this was years ago, and had thousands of dollars in debt. And yes, the first job I had wasn't making hardly anything, and half of my check was going to pay, you know, my tuition costs every single month. But over time, God blessed me to be in the position that I am now, and over time, you know, make enough money to pay off my debt early, and just move forward. And so I think we need to look at the long-term picture and look at the future instead of the short term. Short term is an investment, but it's an investment that's going to pay off in the long run. And so that's why if the young person has the mind to want to pursue a higher education, do not let that cost factor stop you. You know, take that chance. And you know, many agencies will work with young people regarding the debt. It's not like it used to be. When I graduated, there was a fixed amount you had to pay. There was no negotiations. There's a lot of things that can be done now. But my encouragement is for people to apply for as many scholarships as you can. And to me, that's the importance of doing well academically throughout middle school and high school, because the student who has a B average has a wonderful opportunity to get to take advantage of scholarships from higher ed colleges. But they have to apply themselves, they have to be motivated and be willing to work hard, because the scholarship, the money is there. And especially for a lot of our minority students. You know, colleges are seeking those minority students, you know, in their schools. But, you know, you have to apply yourself and be willing to work hard.
And you also have to be a student that's well-rounded.
Yes.
You have to have, you have to know what it is to be a part of your community. You have to also know what it is to apply yourself academically. And so I think it's, in just to sum it all up, you have to know how to apply yourself academically and socially. And they want to see that. They want to see what you're doing for your community.
That's right.
They want to see how you're handling yourself in your community. So they want to know that you're able to communicate with someone outside of your own comfort zone.
Yes.
So that is important for students and parents to know that the band and the other FBLA and DECA and all of the other options that are available to children that are in the high school spectrum, that it's important that our children be involved.
It is.
It is important that they learn how to communicate and how to get along, and sometimes, you know, how to handle conflict.
Right. So
that when you get into those situations, you can be able to communicate. And sometimes, we just be honest, some beautiful things come out of conflict.
Yes, it can.
Good things come out of conflict. So that then our children need to see that. They need to know that. That not all conflict is bad.
Right. Because we're not going to always agree. And if we do, I would sort of question that. You know, you need a little conflict because you need different points of views.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's just for a moment, a few moments we have left, I'm going to switch a little bit, talk about this debate, this subject now that we have come to know here recently as gender neutrality. This, you know, as we know, it's a great debate now. Even our neighbors to the south, they're embroiled in this serious issue about gender neutrality. Could you talk just a little bit how this debate has impacted the county area, Franklin County in particular, even just where does Virginia stand, the Commonwealth stand with this gender neutrality?
Well, I know when the Commonwealth sent out, it's like a superintendent's memo that we received probably 2 or 3 months ago. And one of the directives from the governor was that, you know, each school division, that, you know, you address this within your division, and that you make concessions to, you know, conform to, if you have students who identify as transgender or bisexual, you know, you accommodate the request. Here in Franklin County, we have very few cases that we have to respond to. And we do it on an individual basis. Our main goal is to make sure that the needs of that child is taken care of. We don't want any student to feel uncomfortable. We definitely don't want any bullying or anything to occur with that child. And so when we know there is a need, if there is a child who fits in that category, then the guidance counselors and the administrators, they meet with that student, meet with the parents, and make sure they can work out, compromise with them to make sure if they want to use a restroom facility, we have the unisex facility that we can offer that student. And to this point, we haven't had any problems. Now, there are different schools of thought from staff members, even administrators. But
Right.
here again, sometimes we have to take our own beliefs out of it and do what's best for that child. And so right now, our students, if they fall in that category, they can use the unisex restroom that's available. And we just move on because we're in the business to educate students.
That's so awesome. I'm
Yes.
happy to hear that you don't spend a lot of time highlighting it and
No.
making it such an important issue. If it
No.
is an issue, that you deal with it
Right.
discreetly and you can just move on.
Right.
Which I think that makes for a healthy environment for the
Yes.
student as well as the staff.
Exactly.
Yes, very good. Look, we just got a few moments left. I wanted to grab a couple of more thoughts from you as far as the school itself and how the children are. What are some of you all's challenges as staff of the school, Franklin County Public Schools? What are some of the challenges that you are experiencing now, or some of the they're just the challenges. I want you to talk about that, and then also we'll make the two together. And how can we as parents aid in the education of our children that are in your school system?
Well, I think overall in Franklin County, we still have a huge gap, achievement gap with our subgroup students. And within the subgroups, we have our Black students, Hispanic, not really Asian students, but our Black students, Hispanic, and our special ed students. There's still a wide gap in the achievement between them and their counterparts. And when it comes to SOL performance, those groups tend to lag behind our white students. And so that's why it's extremely important in those early grades that there's a strong foundation of reading and math. Because if students don't have that strong foundation early on, then they tend to struggle throughout their middle school and high school years. But I will commend every school in this division. When students are identified who need additional support, they take every measure possible to provide remediation, to make sure they're using scientific research strategies. If it comes to developing an academic plan for that student, all of these things are done to help make the student successful. And I would say over the past 3 years, I have seen a tremendous increase in the poverty level of many of our students. I would say we have over half of our elementary schools who have poverty levels of 40% or higher. 15, 20 years ago, that was not heard of. We had poverty level, but not as high as it is now. We have a lot of social issues within some of our families. And when these students come to school, sometimes their focus is not on reading and math, but their focus is, will I have a meal when I get home?
Yeah.
The schools are having to provide on a weekly basis meals to several families. The middle school alone last year provided weekly meals to maybe 75 families. Elementary schools do the same thing. There are a lot of social needs, a lot of single parent homes, a lot of grandparents raising young children, older children. And for grandparents who are in their 60s and 70s to have to raise younger kids, it's a challenge because things are so different than they were when they were growing up and going to school. So it's a lot of demands, it's a lot of stress on a lot of families.
Yeah.
But the poverty level, I think, would be the number one, and then the achievement in reading and math.
Once again, thank you so very much. I wish I had more time, but I don't. But please tune in next time. We'll be so happy to come and share with you once again all of the victorious things that God is doing for us. May God bless you. May heaven smile upon you until we meet again.